Hello, and welcome to another Digital Photo Mentor live stream coming to you from my office. But today we're going to be talking about travel photography, and I've got some fabulous images that some of you have submitted. So it's nice to see where everybody has visited. I see a few regulars already in the chat. Catherine, nice to see you from Ireland. David, and hopefully a few more are joining in soon. Rob, if you could please remind everybody on Facebook that if they, well, I'm going to say remind everybody on Facebook. If you're watching on Facebook, if you want to chat with your name showing, just come over and watch us on YouTube, because that's where it'll pull up your name and your profile, unless you're logged in using the StreamYard. So we have a few things, just a few housekeeping things. This is our last Sunday stream for the season, and we are moving to Wednesday as well. We will be gone for a couple of weeks on vacation. So as Catherine has mentioned, we are going on a cruise, and we will enjoy it very much. Thank you very much. And we will be back Wednesdays on May 22nd. So that will be at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So it'll be evening on the East Coast of North America, and I believe early morning in Australia and New Zealand. Tina, first viewing. Awesome. Welcome, Tina. We're glad that you're here. Sue, I've got some of your images that you submitted. I'm not sure I'm going to get to those today. I've got lots of good travel images, and I have some of yours as well, Stephanie. Sheila, I have yours too. Welcome for newcomers like Tina. If this is your first time, welcome to the channel. Hopefully you're not new to the channel, but new to the live. So what we do here on the live stream is I have some images that have been submitted by subscribers, some of the people in the chat, and I'm going to be editing them using their preferred software. In most cases, I don't use On1, but I have Lightroom and I have Luminar, and I have Photoshop. And we can take a look at some of the new tools that are now available with Luminar Neo. It was released for everybody on the 25th. So if you use Luminar, you should have the new tools in your hands. So let me pop over to Lightroom and we'll take a look at the images. Rob, you are on the screen. Did you mean to be on the screen? There he goes. Okay, so I've got quite a few nice images today, and some that I pulled from a while back. I've got Stephanie's that you actually submitted previously when we were talking about iconic locations, because I went back to look at those and the ones that I hadn't done yet. And, you know, we've got Machu Picchu. I recognize a lot of these locations. I actually took a very similar image to this one, Stephanie. It's interesting. I should probably, let's process this one actually, and then I'll go find my image and see how similar. We had great minds think alike. I know this is Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. I recognize Moroco, although I hadn't been to Essaouira. I know that Anne, who submitted this, went to Moroco with my partner Dan, and they did Essaouira, and they saw goats on the trees and so on. And I'm going to be going to Moroco again in September, and there are spots open for that tour. So if you'd like to join me in Moroco, there's an availability for that. I'm just going to turn off my Xire. That's actually something I'm going to be reviewing very soon. I know this one as well, Trevi Fountain in Rome. So I've been to a lot of these places that people have submitted. Now this one is really cool. The title of this one tells me where it was, because this one is submitted by Sheila. So maybe I will do this one as well, because I thought this was a real fun one. So this is Philly Love. So we've been to Philadelphia and very much enjoyed Philadelphia as well. So I've got a few different ideas, and this one of Antrine's is clearly India, and I know she's been to India a lot, so that one is India, another place that I've been. So let's see, where do I want to start? Well, let's start with Machu Picchu. Why not? That's about as iconic as they get, right? So as always, when I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do with an image, the first thing I want to do is analyze it. And I do that in my head kind of instantaneously because I've been doing this so long. If your instincts are not sort of as tuned in as mine because you haven't been doing it as long, you can do the upside down trick where you look at the image upside down and then see what stands out to you. And immediately we need to deal with that, you know, what is now the upper part. And then there's also this little white bit down here in the corner because we want the eye to go through that window, right? And that's probably the intention when she took the picture. So the easiest way to do that is to do a little bit of a crop. So I'm going to straighten it a little bit like that. And that solves that upper corner. And then I'm just going to go make sure the lock is off. Now I'm editing in Lightroom because that is Stephanie's preferred software. I'm just going to come up from the bottom until I get rid of that bright area. Right? So work smarter, not harder as well. So instead of trying to minimize or darken that whole area and doing a lot of work, make your life easier and do cropping as well. Just crop it out. So it makes it simple. Okay. I'm just going to check again. I want to make sure that this line here is straight up and down. So I'm actually going to use the ruler. So I'm going to put it on the corner of this. And this is how the ruler works in Lightroom. You just grab it and then you place it on one spot and then stretch it out and make sure that the line is on the thing that you want straight vertical or straight horizontal. Okay, so I'm choosing this part because I don't know about the window in the foreground. If she was at an angle or up or down, it might have been skewed the perspective a little bit. But when I choose this thing that's at a distance, let's assume that the building should be completely vertical, right? Now it is straight. There we go. So I want that one to be straight. All right, that's the first thing. Now let's go dig into our camera profiles. Let's try landscape, right? Now notice when I went to landscape, this area here in the background went really blue, okay? So the stuff that's further away was a bit bluer. Maybe there's a haze, and I obviously I know that location, and that's okay because what's happening there is it's helping the foreground stand out because warm colors. Why can I never think of that word? Warm colors project and cool colors recede. Seems my brain is not working. Maybe needs more coffee. Okay, more coffee. Okay, so camera profile. The next thing I want to do is my shift double click trick. So I'm going to hold my shift key down while I click the word white and blacks, and that sets the endpoints. So it's setting the white and a black point. So I have nothing clipping on the histogram, right? And I'm going to take the black a little bit farther. I'm now pressing the Alt Option key. So I'm getting a little bit of black clipping, which is okay. And I'm going to give it a little bit of clarity. Okay? The next thing I want to do is warm it up a little bit because it is fairly blue. I also want to be careful of this green that doesn't go too neon. Okay, so I could try a preset. Let's try daylight because it is daylight. It is sunny, and that one actually did pretty well. It's a little bit green here for my liking, so I'm just going to give it maybe a little bit more magenta and maybe a little bit less yellow, something like that. Okay, now I'm going to do an edge vignette, and I have presets that I've saved. This is part of my DPM Lightroom presets pack, but you can make your own, and all that does is applies this here. So if I undo it, okay, under the effects panel, post crop vignette, all my preset does is changes these sliders here. Okay, I'm still not crazy about this green that's happening, so I think I want to do some color adjustments, and I'm going to use the color mixer, which is where you find the old HSL panel. Okay, so it's under mixer, and then you find the colors here. So I'm going to dial the saturation of the green down a little bit. Okay, now you can see that there's actually only a bit of green in there because there's probably quite a bit of yellow as well. See that? Yep. So I'm going to dial the yellow down, and that really helps. There we go. The other thing I can do is darken the greens and the yellows, right? That also is darkening that outer edge. See that? So I don't want to darken too much. We can also shift the hue. Okay, so if I would like the yellows to be a little less green, I can just shift it ever so slightly this way. So let's see what the before and after. I'm just using this eyeball. I think I've gone too far in the darkening area, so I'm going to bring that back. Okay, so see how it's minimizing those greens? Because I want it to be about the rocks. And ultimately, I think this image may work best in black and white. Right? Now, one tip that I gave when, actually, if you could share this video, Rob, the one about better black and whites, if you could share the link to that video. And one of the things I mentioned in that video is setting your color balance first before you shift to black and white, because with this one here, right, if I leave the saturation a little bit higher, when I go to use the yellow slider in the black and white mix, it's actually going to be more effective. So I'm going to dial that saturation back up again. So let's go black and white, because I think this one is going to work really well. And then now when I adjust this one here, okay, see how that's affecting the yellows? I am going to darken the yellows, darken the greens. Let's make the grass darker. And now look at how much that building in the middle stands out. Okay. Like there's even orange in the grass. A little bit of red. No. Okay. Now remember the background was blue? Watch what happens. Okay. So we can use that to our advantage to darken that background. Okay, so look at what's happening. It's really standing out. Okay. We can actually go the other way too. We can make it lighter. Now I'm going to do some local adjustments. So all of those are global adjustments applying to the entire image. Now, when we go to local adjustments, we just need to go to the masking tools, and I'm going to see what Lightroom thinks is the subject. Let's hope that it picks this building in the middle. Hey, that's not bad, right? I wouldn't maybe have this part of the window and this part here if I just want the center part. So I can just do subtract, and I'm just going to use a brush set to auto mask and just erase from this part here. Okay, so I'm just getting the edge of the wall here. And I could have set my opacity a little bit higher, density. Okay, and let me get this little bright area right here. Okay, now that I have the selection area masked correctly, I can set my adjustments. So that was just the mask, right? Now with the adjustments, I want to add some texture and some clarity, but I want to make sure I'm not losing those highlights. Okay, so I want to bring the highlights back down. And I want to make sure I don't get this part here. Now that I have this square part selected, you can see the mask is pretty good. I can also work on the outside of the mask, right? So by renaming, this is inside window, I can just duplicate and invert it, and now I have the outer part. Okay, so I can darken it even more. And make sure to keep some contrast by also lowering the blacks. Okay, so whenever you bring down like the highlights or the exposure, also bring down the blacks because you'll keep that nice contrast. Okay, so there's our before and after. Okay, now if I decide, well, maybe I want this one in color, all we have to do is turn off the black and white mix, and we've got it back in color. Okay, I would like to see this one sort of in maybe a faded out look, so we could look at the vintage camera profiles or the vintage profiles. In other words, they're kind of like a lot, right? They give us a little bit more of a faded. This one's kind of nice. That one's actually really nice. And it deals with some of those off-color issues. Oh, that's kind of cool. I like number 7 a lot. I find that I tend to gravitate to certain ones. Number 5, I do like this one. So let's try number 5. And I'm going to dial it down just a bit. Yeah, I quite like that. Right, so now I've used the vintage profile, and to finish this one off, I might just do a little bit of color grading. Okay, so this is where you can adjust the shadows, midtones, and highlights and give them a tint. So I'm going to pick something in the yellow orange range over here, and then just bring a little saturation up. Maybe too orange. Let's go a little more yellow. So it's just giving kind of that a little bit more of a brown tone feel, right? I could also go the opposite way and do blue in the shadows, make it cooler, and do warm or yellow in the highlights. Okay, so now I've chosen the highlights. Ooh, that actually looks good. A little too green. Let's see what that's doing. So then there's before and after. See, it's very subtle, but it's adding to that camera profile color that I chose. So I'm pretty happy with that. So there's our before and after, right? Now, the beautiful thing about Lightroom is that if you want to do black and white and color, right, you can just make a virtual copy, right? You can do that by right-clicking on the thumbnail or on the image and then choose create virtual copy. Okay, it takes me a minute to find it on the menu because I usually just use the keyboard shortcut, which is Command or Control apostrophe. So we can make a virtual copy, and then we can just make that one into black and white as soon as my Lightroom catches up. There we go. So now we can make that one black and white. Now notice, because I did the color grading, that still applies here. But I think it actually looks kind of cool, right? So the shadows are blue, and maybe I want to take it even farther. So let's take the shadows up a little more bluer, and let's take the highlights up a little bit more yellow. So this is what's called a duotone, right? If you want to have a tritone, we can add a third color in the midtones. Let's try something kind of orangey. Okay, so now we have a tritone. If you want something completely different, we could choose more red or green. Okay, it just gives you a third tone. Ooh, magenta is actually kind of cool. Magenta is kind of cool. And also on this panel, which I didn't mention in the other, when I did the color one, is you can actually affect the brightness as well. So the luminance here, we can actually dial the brightness down of the highlights. Okay, we can make the shadows brighter or darker. Okay, we can go really crunchy. And the other thing that might look cool on the black and white is to go to the tone curve and make it into a matte black and white. Okay, so the simple way to do that is to just lift the left-hand side, and we end up with this sort of soft black and white. I feel like I want to keep the highlights down. It sort of gives it a matte. I'm not crazy about that one. So I'm going to put it back. Something like that. Right? So you get to decide, do you like these colors? I'm not crazy about the magenta. It's kind of fun, but I think this color is really great. Great. Or you could go with a sepia tone. Sepia tone is classic, sort of the, orangey yellow like this. Usually a real sepia tone is more towards green. I like the orangey tones better myself. So I like to keep it more like this. And I usually keep the whites a bit cleaner, but you can go with something like this that makes it really antique looking. Okay. There we go. So now we have two versions. Where's my mouse going? Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we have a color version and a black and white sepia version. Stephanie says she never thought about black and white for it. I think about black and white for anything that is like old like this. And it really draws attention to textures, which there's abundance of here, right? Machu Picchu is all about textures and layers and things like that, right? Coffee is our friend. Yes, indeed it is. And cropping. Yes. So cropping solves a lot of problems. And Rob shared a link to the cropping video that we did a while ago as well. Right. Okay. All right. So let me see if I can quickly find my version of this one because I've got it in my Peru collection, I think. So if I go to my travel, this is my Smug Mug travel. Let's see, where's my Machu Picchu? Getting there, we're getting there. No, I don't have it in here. Interesting. Okay, so it's not in my gallery, which is interesting. I'm just going to pop over here so I know when I took this image, so I can go to the folder in my library. The cool thing, I've been using this Exire photo to do some searching, is I can search for different kinds of things based on text. So here we go, Machu Picchu. There we go. See, I have something very similar, Stephanie. So through the window, right? There was my finished version, but you can see how similar that is. Look at, we've got the stairs. I think that's actually, let me just add this to my quick collection because I think, I think it's the same spot. Oops. I'm going to add this to the quick collection. Let's go look at Stephanie's. And I'm going to add hers to the quick collection. Let's do the color one. Okay, so quick collection in Lightroom is something you can use to just temporarily, okay? So let's see. My image on the left, Stephanie's on the right. Exactly the same spot. Look at that. What are the chances? Look at this rock right here, right? It's exactly the same spot. Just slightly different angle. Mine has the clouds, or the clouds of the coming in behind there. And I've got something else in the foreground here. So my window is more out of focus, right? And I did that on purpose so that the stuff in the middle is sharper, right? So you can see mine was done at f5.6 and hers is done at f11. Okay, so it totally gives you a different look. But how interesting is that, hey? Same exact spot. There you go, Stephanie. We've stood on the same spot. That's pretty cool. Too funny, right? Well, small. It's not that small a world, but interestingly, I mean, it's obviously a very well-traveled spot, but we both saw the same thing. So good job, Stephanie, because I mean, I've been doing photography a long time, and that was my vision, and you had the same foresight and the same vision to see that shot. So well done. Sounds like Marty has been there as well. That'll be interesting for you to submit it, Marty. I'd love to see a third one. Let's see how many photos of that exact same thing we can get through that same window at Machu Picchu. Funny. Anne is here. I think Anne has that photo as well. Yeah, so let's see how many we can get of that one. All right. And I do have your images too, Anne. And I know you like Photoshop, but I'm going to actually do one of yours in Luminar because I want to show you how the new tools work. So let me hop to that one next because Anne is in the house, and Anne has been on, I don't even know how many of our tours, 5, 6, I've lost track, right? And I know your photo editing software of choice is Photoshop. Okay, so I'm going to do the basics here in Lightroom, and then I'm going to show you what the new tools in Luminar can do with this. Okay, so she's happy with Luminar as well. Okay, so I'm just going to do the camera profile first, and I'm going to go up to camera matching. Let's start with landscape. Okay, so we've got lots of blues. So landscape usually will pick up the blues, and I want to add some black. I don't want to do the shift double click on this because it's going to go too contrasty, right? This is kind of a softer image, so I want to keep it a little bit softer, right? It's a little underexposed. You can see there's a lot of space here, before it hits the right side. So I am going to bring the whites up because that helps the exposure. Okay. And let's bring the shadows up a little bit, but let's keep it sort of soft like that. Okay. So I don't want to go crazy. I'm going to do an auto correct on the cropping because I think it's a little bit crooked. Yes, it was. Okay. So it just fixes that. Okay. Now we've got lots of sort of nice horizontal lines here, but and I find that like the horizon itself is somewhere in the middle here. So I might actually crop this into a panorama and just come down a little bit on the sky. I want this dark part of the sky to sort of be the top. Let's try that. And I might come up a little bit on the water. I don't want to crop out too much. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change my mind because I want to see how the enhancer works first, and then I'm going to crop it after. So I've changed my own mind, tucked myself out of it. Okay. What I will do is just get rid of that white strip at the top. I'm just bringing it down just to get rid of the white strip. Okay. So I can add a bit of clarity here. Okay. Now remember, clarity is going to add some black, as does dehaze. Okay. So dehaze, if you want more contrast, this is a great go-to slider. Okay. Because it just gives you immediate boost of that. Okay. I'm just going to do a little bit of clarity. And notice that as I increase these things, the color increases as well. Okay. I've talked about this so many times. Is if you want color, you need more black in your image. You don't need to touch these sliders. I very rarely use the saturation slider. If I do, I'm usually putting it down. I'm usually putting it towards negative. Okay. So I'm just going to go about there. Okay. I want to see if this image is sharp. And we've got a little bit of chromatic aberration here. So I want to just double check that I have the lens corrections turned on. Let's turn on chromatic aberration. Can you see that? There's a little fringe color. I don't know if you can see it on here or not. And there's a little bit of noise, but there's a little bit of a fringe color right there. And that solves the problem. Okay. Profile correction. I can take it or leave it. Right. Let's turn it on. Okay. It picks up the lens. Right. And that's about all I want to do in here. Okay. I want to make sure that I keep the details. I'm checking to make sure nothing is clipping. So I'm keeping it nice and soft and lower contrast on purpose. Okay. I might warm it up a tiny little bit. But let's go with something like that. Okay, so I'm going to start here, and then I'm going to take this one over to Luminar. And I'm not adding a vignette right now. I'm going to come back to that as well. Okay, so I want to see what Luminar can do with this one. And I'm going directly to Luminar. I'm not too concerned about going through Photoshop because I want to apply the water. Okay. I'm not doing any major edits. And if I like what I've done here, I can save it as a preset. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, I just did a video. I made a video yesterday that will be coming out on the channel in the next couple of days. Probably we'll publish it on Monday, Rob. Is that, what do you think? Monday or Tuesday? And it's about using the Twilight Enhancer AI and the Water Enhancer AI together. Right? And I saved a little preset in that video. So I'm actually just going to use it. So I'm going to go to my favorites because I just added it here. And I'm going to see what it does on this image. So it's applying the preset. See, now we get this little thing at the bottom here that tells us what it's doing. You can see that it's applying the preset, right? Let's see what everybody is saying over here. Mind meld. This is Iceland. The fog is flowing on the fjord. Okay, cool. Okay, so look what my preset did. Okay, a little over the top yellow, right? I did a lot of golden stuff in here, but I literally called this preset Golden Twilight C. That was the name of it, okay? So it includes a couple of things that I could just go tweak. It includes the Twilight Enhancer. So I'm just going to go to the bottom here using the golden preset. Okay, so golden is one of the presets in this tool. If I don't want it gold, I could try something else, right? I could try one of these other ones. That one's kind of neat, but now I've got two different colors. Emerald. Okay, that's kind of cool. Mauve is kind of cool. Okay, now I can adjust the various different sliders. Okay, so this one, exposure, affects the top part of the sky and the sky color here. Okay, so the exposure slider darkens the sky overall and the entire image because I've got scene lighting turned on. I can set the color of the top part of the sky, so this part. Okay, this dawn section sets this middle part. Okay, so I'm actually going to open two sections here. The mask refinement. Okay, see how I can adjust where the horizon is. Okay, so I can set it right there. Actually got it pretty good. Okay, so it's kind of at the bottom of the water here. Okay, if I don't want the sky applying over top of the image as much, I can turn down this sky global. Okay, but then I have a problem here. It's not applying correctly. So then I might want to move the horizon up a little bit. Yeah, I'm still not happy with that. I think it's better there. So the sky global definitely needs to be a little higher, even at 100. Okay. Fix gaps does some odd things. It's bringing back part of the original image again if things are cut off, like tree branches and stuff. But I found that there's this weird middle spot where it actually comes across the water and stuff. So really experiment with this one because it's kind of doing some weird things. Right? And this blur is just the mask blur, not the image blur. We can decide how much color we want in the water in terms of the reflection, right? And how much scene lighting we want. Okay, so scene is the color coming overall. And let's see, shade allows me to brighten or darken. Interesting. It's affecting partly the water and partly this rock here, right? Let's see what that one tool is doing. It gives us like a sunset kind of thing, okay? Let's dial this one down just a bit. So dawn is the color that's in the middle section here. Okay, so we can set the color, the size. Okay, so I want it just on the horizon or expanding up into the sky. Let's just keep it down here. And let's just lower it a little bit. So now we've kind of got this pink fog. But let's do the opposite. Let's go. Okay, I want more blue fog. Lower that down. So now the fog is a little bit bluer or yellow. I think yellow is better. Let's go more yellow. There we go. And then, of course, we can adjust the sky color to be warmer or cooler. Okay? So we can add more yellow into the sky as well. That's kind of nice. Okay, so I started with what I did on the preset. Then the next one is the water enhancer. Okay, so this one allows me to adjust the watercolor. Okay. I can darken the water. I can make it bluer. I can make it greener. Maybe less green. Okay, so nice blue. See that? So that's basically taking the yellow off that we just applied with the sunset. So giving it a little more blue back. Okay. On the preset, I use the Sky Enhancer AI. I might dial that one back just a little bit. And then I added a vignette. Okay. So let's just see where my vignette is. Pretty centered. Okay. The reason I like to do the vignette in Luminar is because you can off-center it. You can't in Lightroom. You just have to use a radial filter. Okay. I feel like there's some sort of weird spot here, so I'm actually just going to remove it. Now notice that I only see these tools here because I closed up the panels. You can actually expand them and contract them now. Okay, so I'm just going to erase this I'm not sure if it's something in the sky or if it's a dust spot, but I'm going to get rid of it. You can make artistic license too. Even if it is a cloud. If I don't like it, I can just get rid of it. See, I just didn't like that dark spot there. See that? It's gone. There's something else weird going on this cloud too. Like it's like, look at, there's a smiley face. Can you guys see the smiley face? It's right here. This is a smiley face in the sky. Okay, well, I'm not going to erase that. We're going to leave the smiley face. So there's the before and after using the new Luminar tools. Pretty cool. I think I am going to crop this one into panoramic, but I'm going to bring it back to Lightroom and then do the crop. You like the pink fog? I like the pink fog too. 11 p.m. Wow. Oh, it's midnight sun, right? Midnight sun up there. Cool. Okay, so final edit in here. I'm not crazy about the blue color up here because your eye goes to all the color, right? And there's a lot going on here. So I just want to simplify. And I'm going to come down into this dark area like I initially said. And then a little bit less water. Okay, so we've got more of a panoramic kind of image like that. To me, that's really nice and balanced, right? We've got the fog in the foreground, the cloud in the background, right? The other thing that we could have done that I didn't do in Luminar, and if I want to do that, I can take it back. That would be an advantage of doing the Photoshop step in between, right? Let's just take it back again. So if I want to go back, I have to edit another version now. But I just want to show you what it can do. I'm not actually going to save it. I'm just going to show you. If we want to blur the water and or blur the sky, we can use the blur tool and the new object select, right? We can also use the, where are we here? We can also use the luminosity masking. So I'm going to use blur, motion blur, and see if we take it all the way. Look what it does to the water. It's actually really cool, right? So I'm just going to mask it. And I'm going to use Mask AI and see if it finds the water first. Okay, so instead of doing object, I'm just going to use the original Mask AI because water is one of the things that it should look for. So water. There we go. Okay, so it did a good job. And if I want the sky, I can also include the sky or not. Okay. That's got a little bit of the clouds. Let's just double check here. Okay, so going back. So see how that water is now blurred? Okay, so that's the motion blur. If I want to just blur it, that's Gaussian blur. But I like the motion blur because it's like we're moving, right? Like the water is flowing this way, right? Now, if we want to do the same effect in the sky, I could apply it on this one or I can apply it separately, okay? Let's try it again. I'm going to do blur, motion, okay? And this one might require, if we want the sky, right? Notice that the sky picks up some of the clouds, okay? So I'm actually not going to use that one. I'm going to try the new object select, okay? So object select allows you to just click on any object and it should find the outline. See that? Look at that. Object select, sky. There we go. So that worked better than Mask AI. There we go. So now I'm just going to copy this mask because if I want to apply it again, I can do motion, amount, mask, paste. Okay. So now we're getting a little bit of an edge over here, but I can go and adjust the mask. See the blur? That's kind of cool as well. I do like that cloud though. I do like the cloud, right? But we could go and adjust the mask. I could do some erasing here. Let's just go 50% around the edge. I don't want to get this edge here. Okay, now remember, I've got two versions of this blur tool, so I've got to go and fix the other one as well. Okay, so I'm going to mask, brush, erase from here. So I got that blur on the edge of this mountain. or whatever, the fjord, like so. You know, let's just see if I bring the cloud back a little bit. That's kind of cool, right? Okay, so I'm going to copy this mask again. And then paste it into this other one. So now we get the cloud back. So that's neat too. All right, maybe I will save it. So there's our before and after. Okay. It kind of solves some of there was like this blotchiness in the sky up here. Something going on up here. Right? So see how it was sort of blotchy, almost grainy? And then the blur solves that. I kind of like the blur. I'm going to save it. There we go. It is a nice way to do a selective blur. I love using those tools. The blur tool, I honestly didn't think I would use it as much as I have, but look at how cool that is, right? Okay, I want to see that replicated and in the Facebook group by the end of the week, and then a print hanging on your wall. Off you go. Yes, exactly. Now you can print it, but you have to do the edits first. I'm not doing it for you. So you have to copy and print it. I want to see a picture of this hanging on your wall because that makes a beautiful panorama canvas print. Lovely. Okay, so let's take a look at our original image here. Right? Where are we? Okay, so here's the original. We've got multiple steps here, right? I'm going to make a virtual copy. And I'm going to reset this one so we can see it before the edits. Reset. There we go. Okay, now I'm just going to move the order of these around a little bit. So I'm going to put that one first, second, and then where's our third and fourth? Okay. Third and fourth. There we go. So let's see our progression here. Okay, so original, upper left. Next, this one is the original. This is our Lightroom edit. This is the first Luminar edit with the sky, Twilight, and the water enhancer, and then added a little bit of blur. So the tools in Luminar are super easy to use, right? How much more difficult that would be in Photoshop, right? You have to do your own selections and so on. Okay, a lot more masking involved. You have to know which tool to use. This is why Luminar is so great because it's just easy and you can make something, you know, you can go from this to this, right? Great image to begin with, okay? You still have to start with a great image. Awesome. All right, let's go back and let's do this one of Sheila's because this one is a lot of fun here. Okay, so Philly Love. I love it. My first impression is it's very, very blue. Okay, so I'm going to choose a camera profile. And I'm not going to choose landscape in this case because I don't want to enhance the blue. I'm probably going to go with faithful or neutral. And we definitely need to adjust the white balance. Okay, so I'm going to choose daylight. Okay, immediately that's a better color. Okay, because this is like steel or aluminum, and that should be gray. Okay, now if we know that that's gray, we can also use the eyedropper and just put it on there, and you'll get a neutral color as well. I think daylight was a little better. That looks pretty good. Okay, next it's crooked. Okay, so I'm going to use the cropping tool and just choose auto. Okay, now another way that you can do this and straighten your images is using the transform tools. Okay, and if you use the crop tool and let's say you took 5 pictures of this same thing. Okay, if you use the crop tool to straighten and you copy and paste your settings, whatever is in the crop tool, whatever this amount is, even if you use auto, whatever this number is here gets copied and pasted. So it's going to correct the tilt the same amount on all the images. However, if you use transform and use level instead, right? If the tilt or the amount of crookedness is different in each image, it will correct them all differently. Okay, so that applies to presets as well. So if you copy and paste from one image to another, something that is crooked that needs to be straightened, crop tool will equally make them all adjusted equally, whereas transform level will apply the leveling amount as necessary for each image, even if they're different. Okay, something to keep in mind. I'm actually going to try auto here. Let me just turn it all the way off. And I'm going to try auto here. Okay, now it's correcting some of the sideways distortion. Okay, see that? Full, same thing. Okay, so we're just correcting some of the distortions, but it's also solving another problem, which is there's people's heads down here. Okay, so I would want to get rid of the heads anyways. So if I go with full or auto, I think like full better. If I go with full, right, we get rid of some of those heads. We can also try the guided crop or guided adjustment here and choose the lines on the building to straighten. So I just have to line it up there. Let me use the edge of the windows here. Okay, so that will straighten the verticals. Okay, I think. Let's go all the way to the edge. Let's go to this one. So I have to pick the right window here. There we go. Still looks crooked on the edge to me for some reason. Still looks crooked for some reason. Let's try this one. So as I move this, you'll see it's changing the adjustment. Does that look straight to you? Looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to go with that. And then we can just use the clone tool to get rid of this guy. Okay, so now we've got the camera profile, we've got the color corrected and the tilt corrected. I'm going to do the shift double click to bring some contrast back in. Okay, I'm going to use the clone tool, and I'm doing this fairly quickly. So, oh, it's somebody's hat. So I'm going to use the clone tool set to this one, which is content aware, and just make sure I get the whole head and see what Lightroom does. That's not bad. It's kind of a little red tint. That's better. There we go. And let's do this hat as well. That's pretty good. And while I'm at it, I want to do these signs. Now I could also move this around over here. Okay. So I want to get rid of this no smoking or whatever it is sign. If you're not happy with what it's done, just hit refresh and see if it gives you a better option till you get one that looks realistic. That's not bad. Okay. I want to get this sign. That's really realistic as well. Right? I could do the light pole and these lights up here, but they don't bother me that much. Okay, so far we've done some tilt correction, some color correction, a little bit of erasing. Okay, now I just want to do some adjustments to bring that sign out a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to go into local adjustments because I can add a little bit of clarity overall, right? But I want to minimize the background and the buildings. So I'm going to do that with subject select, and it selected the sign. Perfect. Okay. So in this case, I want to give the sign more clarity. I don't think there's a lot of texture there, and increasing texture on something like this, see how it's giving it more noise? So I'm not going to, yeah, see that? I'm not going to use texture because the sign itself is actually smooth, right? If anything, I might do denoise. I'll bring the noise reduction up a little bit. See that? Just remove the noise a little bit. Okay. And to give it a little bit more punch, I can increase the black, which does what to the colors? When I increase the black, what happens? More color, right? Okay, so now I can name this sign, or I could call it love, okay? Just so you know what it is. Then I'm going to, I could do duplicate and invert, or I could just go select background because it did a pretty good job of selecting the subject And when you're using Lightroom, if it has selected the subject correctly, you can switch it over and do background select. I just want to make sure it's not getting that sign. No, it's not. Okay, so I switched to a red mask because I wanted to make sure it wasn't over top of here. And I just want to check that it's not. Oh, it is getting a little bit of the sign. See that? Okay, so maybe I do need to check. I'm going to delete that one. I'm just going to check my sign. Aha. Okay, so it is missing part of this sign. So I need to add. I'm just going to do add object. And just get a smaller brush and then just make sure it gets this part of the L here. There we go. So I hadn't noticed that it was missing that part of the L. Now I also noticed that it's got some of this base here, but not all of it. So I could add object again and try and get the legs if that's important. I think it needs a base. Okay, so I want to make sure that the base is part of the, there we go, part of the subject as well. Okay, now I want to do duplicate and invert. Okay, because I've altered what it thought was the subject. Okay, versus the background. Well, it's still got a little bit here. Okay, so I need to subtract. I'm just going to mask it out. Yeah, see, it's still got a little bit of the L here. So it tells me I need to go fix the other mask too. Okay, so while I'm here, what am I going to do to the background? To bring out the subject, I'm going to darken it and bring down the blacks. Right? I can also lower the texture. And if I want to blur it, there's not a great blur option in Lightroom in the masking tools. Right? I can lower the sharpness a little bit, but it doesn't give you that sort of depth of field look. We have to use the lens blur tool to do that. Okay. I'm just going to go back to the sign and paint that bit in as well. There we go. Okay. So let me just see what the masks are doing. Okay. See how that's bringing out the sign? I think that's gone a little too dark. I can add my edge vignette. Okay, so there's the original. And there is the corrected, edited version. Okay, I might brighten this up overall a little bit now. It's gone a little dark. I think that looks really cool. The lens blur tool. I don't like to use this one a lot when I'm demonstrating live because it tends to take a lot of resources. It is pulling from the cloud. So when I apply it, it takes a little while to kind of pop in. Like so. All right. And it's kind of gotten it wrong. So I need to see where the blur is going. So let's visualize. Yeah, see, it's still getting a lot of that building. So we can adjust the range just by going more forward, right? Does it get less of the building? Now we start to eliminate the sign. So we got to be careful here. I'm going to have to paint. I'm going to have to paint it in, okay? So I need to paint in the blur onto the building. Let's see. So I definitely need to get this area. Yeah, it's being confused by this tree is what's happening. See that? So the tree is sort of close. So it's being confused by the tree. I'm just using the auto mask to get close to the edge here. And it missed a little spot in here as well. Right in here. I would zoom in and do a better job. You can see that it's not getting the edge quite right. See that? I'm adding the blur to the edge here. It's still not perfect there. Okay, but that's gives us the idea. So yeah, it's missed a spot in here too. See how slow this tool is? This is why I don't use it. Honestly, if I wanted to add a background blur instead of this tool, I would take it to Luminar, to be honest. Because I find this tool is really clunky and difficult to use. I don't know why I still feel like this image is crooked. It looks straight, like the lines are straight, but there's just something about it that just feels crooked for some reason. Maybe that's better. I don't know. Maybe it's my eyes. Okay. So if I want to blur the background, I would take it to Luminar. Okay. Let's just say try the object select mask again in Luminar. Hey, Marguerite. On the adjustment in Lightroom, yes, I set the 2 verticals to get true vertical, but it still felt like it was tricking my eyes for some reason. I still felt like it was leaning a little bit to the left, so I just did a little tilt. But that's under that guided, okay? So you have to set at least 2, but you can actually set 4. So you could set horizontals as well. I just didn't have a great horizontal thing to choose as my options. Okay, where did it go? Oh, there we go. It's over here. Luminar opened on my other screen. Okay, so let's go to the blur tool. And this one, we can have some fun with. Okay, I can just do Gaussian blur to get the mask right. Okay, so let's just do Gaussian blur. And then I'm going to do object select. So I'm going to select the sign and then invert it. See that? I did a really good job. Excuse me. Okay, now the problem is it's on a base, right? And the tree got missed. So I'm going to select. I need some subtract now because I inverted it. Okay. So I'm going to make sure I get the base because it's not going to be on something blurry. And oh, see, I subtracted too much. I might have to paint that tree. Okay. Because the tree itself over top there would be sharp, right? So I'm going to erase it from this tree. So it gets a little tricky because the building is in the middle there. Rob, I need a cough drop. Ugh. Rob, can you come on screen and tell a gardening story? I just need to grab a cough drop.
Sorry, I took my headset off. I was going to go get her a cough drop. Did she say tell a camping story? I didn't quite catch the story. How is everybody? Hey, if you're getting something out of the editing today, put a 1 in the chat, or in fact, put in maybe what have you learned? She's been demonstrating Lightroom and Luminar Neo. What's something you've learned today so far?
Okay,
And
I'm
I'll
back.
preemptively say goodbye.
Did you want to do a survey as well, Rob?
Well, I asked them a question about saying something that they learned so far from the stream.
Okay, cool.
So they're going to be putting that into the chat.
Oops. Okay, so basically what I wanted to do is have this tree sort of, I wish it wasn't overlapping the sign. That's unfortunate. But let's just run with it. Because what I want to do is just have some fun with his background. So we could do a Gaussian blur like this, or we could do something like this. Right? So this is the twist blur, and we can make something fun. And I could totally remove the, this part as well, and get rid of that. So we could change the mask if I want to, paint over this bottom part here. So we could totally get rid of the legs too, right? And just have some fun with it. There's not much I can do with the leaf that's overlapping. Maybe we can just erase it. Yeah, I'll probably just erase it. Right? So we have some fun with that. Usually what I do when I'm blurring like this is I just go like around the edge, so it's not getting the edges of the actual subject. Oops. See what I did there? I missed that part in there now. This is why you want to use a small brush and zoom in. Right? So do as I say, not as I do. Right? Okay, so there we got some fun blur. And I'm going to let it overlap. If the edge of the love is blurred, that's fine. I'm okay with it. I'll get that little spot in there. There we go. Okay, so now I've done the job masking. Always copy, because I'm going to do it again. Okay. Blur it again. Twist. And 45 degrees is the magic number to get sort of this look. Okay. To get the spiral kind of look. If you go all the way, you get a circle. Okay. So if you want the spiral, 45 degrees or minus 45. Okay. Because the neat thing is, if we duplicate the layer, we can actually make it twist the other way too. And I could have changed the spot, right? I didn't put the blur right in the middle. I could have, right? So I could put this blur spot right in the middle here, right? And if I do that, I need to go and change the other ones so that the blur center is, let's just put it right between the V and the E. Right there. Yeah. Okay. So now we have a really cool twist. Right? So remember how I showed to do the abstract twist? So we duplicate the layer. Actually, before I do that, let me delete this layer. Before I do that, let's erase that leaf. See, now we're just having fun. So I'm going to go in and just erase the leaf. Let's see how it does. Because it does make sense, right? I just want an L. I just want an L. If it's not going to work, I could try the cloning tool as well. I'm trying to do too much, I think. Let's try the cloning tool. So I just want to make sure I'm cloning forward here, making the line straight. See that? And I want a little crooked. Close enough. Close enough, because we're going abstract here, so I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it being not perfect, because we've kind of gone abstract art here, right? The shadow would completely come over here as well. There we go. Okay, now that the leaf is gone, now I can duplicate the layer with a D, right? And when I switch over, I'm going to switch the layer properties now. Let's just try We'll try overlay, but you'll see what happens here. Okay, so now what I need to do is go back to the blurs, and they're still masked, and just change it to -45. So now it's twisting in the opposite way, right? So the twist is going this way. We still have the erase and the clone, right? So the leaf should be gone. There we go. And now I can just change the blend mode. Okay, so now that I've got this here, we can change the blend mode to darken, multiply, right? Whatever we want to try here. I kind of don't mind one of these, and then also we can lower the opacity, right? So we just create a different blur. So we've created something completely abstract. Ta-da! I can add a bit of contrast too, because if I want to do the background, let's copy this mask from the blur here. Just want to make sure I've got the mask copied. So if I want the background to have a little bit more contrast, right, we can do that. And just give it more blacks. Remember I said black and white. Paste in the mask. There we go. See, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting some really cool abstract-y stuff happening, right? So smart contrast, more blacks, more whites, mask. Oh, apparently I can't paste, right? So I got to get the mask. That's a pet peeve of mine, is I can't copy the mask from one layer to the other. That really irks me. That's something that I've mentioned to Skyline a few times. Okay. That's kind of neat, right? So let's see what other modes. Overlay is cool as well. I like lighten. I think it was actually better before I messed with the bottom layer. So I'll just undo this one. Yeah, I think that was better. So we could go with something like that. It's kind of neat. Or if you don't like the blur effect, just use the Gaussian blur. But I like to show what you can do. So we made a complete abstract with the twisty thing. I think you have a layer video on that, Rob, as well, if you want to share that. Ah, you have a Love St. Thomas. There you go. Yeah, make it into an abstract. Why not? Rob is asking about the pole. So what do you guys think of that? Do we like the twisty? Where is it? Do we like the Lightroom edit, or do we like the fun Luminar edit? Again, there's no right or wrong. Just tell me in the chat, which one do you like? Or somewhere in between. Would you do something different? The sign is the really interesting part, and the background is just kind of busy, right? So finding a way to minimize it, for me, works. Lee says super fun edit. Tina loved it. Awesome. Roger likes the Luminar one. Fun edit. Both look amazing. Different reasons, right? And that's Sue's image, so she has an opinion on that for sure. So, oh no, that's Sheila's image. Sorry. Luminar is your favorite. Catherine says Luminar as well. So that one's Sheila's. That was Sheila's. I haven't seen Sheila today. We're going to keep the stream a little bit shorter today. I think I'm going to do one more. I've already done one of Stephanie's and one of Anne's. I could do one of Sue's or this one of Trine's. How about we do a vote? Let me see. Which image And I've done one of Sheila's already. Which image would you guys like me to edit? Let me get off the screen. Is it the church tower, the kids, the one with the arch, the fountain, the volleyball players, or the dogs? In the last one, Marty says he likes the blurring without the rotation. Both for different reasons. Stephanie likes Marty's plan. Okay, so we got 2 votes for Sagrada Familia, the church. Roger wants to see the arch. Catherine wants to see the arch. Okay, we got a tie. More votes. 2 more fountains. Oh, 2 fountains. Another fountain. Oh, 3 fountains. The fountains are ahead. 4 fountains. Fountains winning, you guys. Fountains winning. I think it's the fountain. We got 4 fountains. And another arch. Still only 3 arches. I think the fountain's winning. Okay. Unless we have another vote. We're going to go with the arch or with the fountain because that was the majority vote here. No, I got to find it. There it is. Okay, so Stephanie's image. Interesting enough, she didn't even vote for herself. You didn't even vote for yourself, Stephanie. All right, so let's do a basic edit on this one. Okay. There's a few things we can immediately see, and that is that the water is blown out. It's a really hard subject to photograph because there's so many people around, so you must have stayed later in the day. Now, did you use a tripod on this one, Stephanie? Because the shutter speed is 1/15 of a second, ISO 3200. So if you're using a tripod, you can lower your ISO and even use a longer shutter speed and get that water flowing even more, right? So let's deal with the bright spots, okay? Let's try landscape because it is going to give us some more of that blue, right? Landscape adds us more contrast though, so maybe I don't want to. Let's go with camera neutral or standard or faithful because I want to keep that. See, it minimize those problems. So let's bring the highlights down. I'm holding the Alt Option key. Okay. I'm not worried about the one down here because I'm probably going to do a vignette. Now we also know that it's crooked and it's leaning back because of the angle, right? She said no tripod, handheld. Okay, well, 15th of a second is pretty good handheld. You set it on the edge of the fountain or something like that. Let me get into there we go. Okay, so I'm going to go down to transform on this one. And let's try a couple of things. Let's try auto and see what that does. Okay, so we lose a lot of the image if we straighten it fully. We lose a lot of the fountain, but now everything is fully straight, okay? If I just do level, it's attempting to correct the tilt. Okay, vertical. If we turn on crop, now we've lost a good section of the fountain. Okay, so that's not the best option, right? Let's make sure we're not cropping anything out. And if we go full, we lose a lot as well. So honestly, I probably wouldn't crop this one as much or use the corrections. I would just correct the tilt a little bit. And I'm going by the columns in the middle here. Okay, so I'm just eyeballing using the crop tool that this column should be the most straight up and down. Okay, because it was taken at an angle. So the ones over here are not going to be straight. So I'm trying to get it as straight as possible and keep as much of the fountain as possible. Okay. That looks pretty good. Okay, so if we correct the tilt, we lose too much. Okay, now let's come back up to basic. Okay, so we've got the highlights more or less under control. Let's do some black. I'm not going to raise the white. I'm not going to raise the white because that's going to increase the problem. Maybe bring it down a little bit even. Okay. Now the challenge is we've got a lot of contrast in the foreground, not so much up here. Okay, so I'm going to do a graduated filter And I'm just going to bring it from the bottom up, covering these bright spots. Okay, so this area down, I want to bring the highlights down even more. Okay, maybe even darken it a tiny bit, like so. Okay, so I don't want that to apply to the top of the image. Okay, so this is the fountain. Then, so bottom half of the image. Then I'm going to do the exact opposite on the top. Okay, so another linear gradient. And the farther apart these lines are, the more that it fades. So it's not going to be as obvious. On here, I'm going to bring up the whites, give it more contrast, okay. Brighten it a little, and more black. Okay, so I want to show you what these two masks are doing. Okay, so I've divided the image in half. Okay, so see how it's darkening the bottom, brightening the top. So it's just evening it out a bit. Okay, like so. Now I'm really curious, actually, if I add another one to see what Lightroom thinks is the subject. So let's just do subject select. So it thinks that the statue is the subject. Okay, so it's looking for a person. So we could actually even just brighten the subject. It's brightening the dome as well. Okay, so if I want to brighten just the statue, I can just deselect this area. So I'm deselecting object or erasing object. Okay. There we go. Still subtract. I'm going to subtract this whole. So I just want the statue. I don't want the stuff behind him, right? I think it's Zeus, isn't it? I think it's Zeus. And I'm not doing a good job with the objects here. So I'm going to delete these objects and I'm just going to subtract using the brush. Okay, I'll use the auto mask. So it's finding the edge. Okay, so I just want to auto edge find here. Again, I should zoom in. Okay, so I can see what the heck I'm doing. So I want to get nice and close to the statue. Okay, so when you use edge auto aware or auto mask, do that next to the subject. And then I find that you have to turn it off to get these other bits over here because it's looking for contrast and it's only getting part of the parts that I want here. So turn it off. See how there's little bits of red up here? Okay, so that's parts it didn't get. It didn't unmask. It didn't unselect these areas up here. Okay, so be careful of object or edge auto mask because do that only right up to the image, right next to the image. Okay, so when I'm next to the image, I use it. When you're not next to the subject, don't use it. For the subject, sorry. Okay, now I'm going to add to the mask. Let's use the brush again. I'm still on auto mask because it's missing part of the statue here. And I'm missing his head. Now see, it's going over again. So really small brush here. And I'm going to add these statues as well. So we can just bring the statues out a little bit more. And get a bigger brush. Okay, so my masking is not going to be perfect here because I'm trying to do this a little faster. Let's get this one. Masking is your friend, especially when you're selecting subjects and objects like this. Okay, so now I've got them selected. I can brighten them, bring up the whites and exposure, right? And then keep the blacks down because we don't want to make them look mushy. Okay, now he's brighter than them. So if I brighten too much, I can use a subtract brush that I used. and just paint at a lower opacity to lower the opacity on the middle part of him so he doesn't get too bright. Okay, see what that's doing? Bringing out our statues a bit more. I could do the same with the ones up here if I wanted, and so on. So you get to select which parts of the image you want to highlight. Okay, so there's the before and after. Okay, see how much more detail we've got in here because of the highlight control. Okay, I could still throw an edge vignette on there, which darkens even more. Okay, now it's really nice and moody. Right, this one might be cool in black and white even. Okay, so we know it's a fountain, but it's cool in black and white because I like historical things in black and white. I don't know why. I find it's a little bit yellow, so if we adjust a little bit of yellow out, okay, the water gets bluer. See that? We could try auto as well. Auto white balance. Not bad. Still a little bit yellow. Auto is better, right? If we know that this guy is marble and he's white, we can put it right on him, right? And notice how the blue comes out in the fountain then, okay? Alternatively, instead of lowering our white balance, we could go down to, remember, our color mixer, saturation, and just lower the saturation of yellow, okay? So see how we leave the water then. Just bring that down. Do we have any orange? Yes, we have orange. Do we have red? A little bit. Okay, see how that's lowering the saturation of the yellow on the building. Okay. It's also affecting the rocks too. But that looks pretty good. Okay. Oh, same thing. If we wanted more blur in the water, as if it was a longer exposure, I would take this to Luminar. Okay, so I'm using lots of these new tools in Luminar today, but the new tools like the water enhancer and the Twilight enhancer, which I did use on Anne's image. They're really good. They're really good, I have to say. Okay, it opened in the right screen this time. So let's do a blur on the water. Let's do the water enhancer. Let's see if it finds the water. Okay. So I've had lots of discussion with people online are saying it's not finding the water in my pictures. Well, I have not had a problem with it. Okay. Look at it's even finding the flowing water. Okay. We can refine it. I'm going to say I don't want it on the flowing water so much, and I definitely don't want it on the rocks. So I want to get the blue off of these areas here. See how it's picking up the rocks? Don't have to worry too much about that because if I increase this depth, it's going to remove it from the rock. So this depth slider takes it off of the darker bits. Okay. Let's give it more green. Give it that aqua color we want. Look at the fountain. Nice, right? I can darken it as well, which does what to the color? Darkening. Contrast and darkening will give us more color. See that? Look at that. Now let's blur it. Now let's blur. Okay, so we can make more blur in the water itself. Okay, so motion blur, 100%, angle 90 gives us an up and down. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the mask, and then I'm just going to paint it in ever so slightly with a lowered opacity because I just want it on the flowing water a little bit. So see how that's giving us more effect of moving water. Okay. So because you didn't have the long shutter speed that you wanted, because you didn't have a tripod, we can sort of fake it using this motion blur. See that? And I might want to dial it back a little bit even. See how it gives it sort of that softening, right? And if we want more blur in the bottom water, same thing. Okay, now which blur is going to work the best? Motion blur. Okay, motion blur, when we leave the this angle at 0, it goes side to side, right? Let's try object select and see if it can select the water. I'm sure it will. Yeah, see? Pretty good. Okay, so now it's kind of got a rough edge, so I might just refine the edge a little bit because it's kind of too well defined. I find that it does a good job on the object, but often there's sort of this edge that you need to fix. Okay, so if we want the water blurred a little bit, there we go. Okay, so that's the sideways blur, right? As if the motion is moving sideways. We could change it to up and down blur, twist blur, or just Gaussian blur. I kind of like the motion blur set this way. So it's like it's going flowing. Just gives it a bit of movement side to side. Okay. The other thing that I really like in Luminar is the structure and the details panel. So we can use the structure and put it on the building using the object or the mask AI. So we can try mask AI because architecture is one of the things that it finds, but I'm wondering if it's going to find the fountain as well. Okay, so that's not bad, actually. So architecture is not bad. Let's see how it does with object select. Okay, so if I do object select, I can just get a little bit more specific. Okay, so see that? How as I hover over each thing, I can select which parts. Okay, so now it got this part, which I don't want. There we go. So it's doing a really good job of like just picking up small bits, right? So I don't want it to get this whole part here. So what I would do is get close with the object select like this, and then just go with the brush and paint it in any parts it missed, right? So the object select got me really, really close. Okay, so that's just adding some texture into the building. If I'm happy with the mask, of course, I can copy it and add some more details to the building. So you see how crunchy it starts to get? Be careful of doing that. And mask it in. Paste. This one might be a cool one for a LUT as well, which is the mood tool. There's a lot of sort of teal and orange LUTs you can find online and purchase. So I'm looking at the water. What's it doing to the water and overall? This one's kind of nice. Okay, so if we look at before and after, before Luminar and after. I can't stress enough how much I use Luminar as my finishing touch. So I will use Lightroom, and I do this with my own images as well. Like this is how I would edit this image if it was mine. And honestly, you have a better image of the Trevi fountain than I do. Mine, we were there midday, and there was just so many people around. I did not get a good picture. Should have come back at night. All right. Stephanie says she took this in 2017. I've learned a lot. It's still a good photo, Stephanie. Like there's nothing wrong with this photo at all. You know, it's well exposed. It's in focus. You've used a slow-ish shutter speed to try and get the water moving. But look what you can do with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this image. Okay, so if we look at the Lightroom edit one more time, so there's our Lightroom edit and the Luminar edit. I need to be smaller. Okay, so there's the Luminar edit. Oops, where did we go? Let's do this on the screen. Here, let me do it this way. Come on, mouse, work with me here. Okay, this is compare mode. Okay, so the Lightroom edit is on the left and the Luminar edit is on the right. Okay, so it's not a huge difference. Not a huge difference, but just that added blur to the water makes it feel a little bit dreamier. I could have used the atmosphere tool as well to add some fog or mist on the water, which might have been cool. Okay. And just a little bit more texture in the building, but just those little tweaks, right? And it's not something you can do in Lightroom, those blur things. If you want to do those blur things, you got to take it to Photoshop. So there is a motion blur in Photoshop. It has way more options, and then you have to mask it in and paint it where you want it. So you really have to know what you're doing in Photoshop versus Lightroom, versus Luminar. I just think it's way easier. Okay. Awesome. I'm so glad that you joined us, Tina. How did you find out about the live stream? Are you on my email list? Did you see it on Facebook? How did you find out about it? I'm curious. I'd like to know how people find us. I like the water blur, Stephanie says. Yeah, I do too. I think it just adds like that, little bit. And you don't, sometimes you're in a situation where, when I was at the fountain, I didn't have my tripod either because we were walking around all day. I didn't carry my tripod. Oh, so fake it. Use it later. Did I read my private messages? Yes. The last one was sent half an hour ago, so I'm not sure which private message you mean. Catherine says, another great night of editing. Hope we can learn more about mask and object select while you are away. Well, I do have one video coming out before I go, which is on the Twilight and the water enhancer. So more of what we did today, using those together, like I did on Anne's image. And I'm not sure if I'm going to get another one done before I go, Catherine, but I suggest playing with the object select. Just try different images, and when you move the mouse around, as I did on this one, you'll see what it selects because it highlights in red. Okay, so see how well it works. I found it works good on some things and not as good on other things. Subscribe to the YouTube and on my email list. Awesome. Thanks, Tina. I'm glad you made it today. On Inspiring Session, I'll catch the first portion tomorrow. It'll be available right after we're done, Marguerite, which is we're going to be signing out right away. So, yes, reminder that our next live is, let me come back on here. Our next live is actually going to be May 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. And I will show you the topic here. We're going to be doing forests. There we are. Okay, so the next topic is forests, and I do have quite a few images already, but if you'd like to submit some more, there's always room for more forests and trees. You can't see the forest for the trees, right? Okay. So can you provide the link for them to submit images if they would like to send in some of theirs, please, Rob?
Hey, the link to submit images is the same link where viewers from the EU, the UK, and Africa can also vote and leave us their thoughts on which day of the week is best for a morning live stream between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. It's on that same page. Thank you very much.
Rob wants me to do a 2 a.m. our time live because I'm usually up anyways. I was literally editing the video last night at 2 a.m. I just work better at night. So give us a vote if you're in Europe on what's a good time for you. Even East Coast. might be a little late for you on the East Coast, but 2 a.m. My time is going to be, you know, some 9, 10 o'clock in Europe. So let us know what time is good for you. Is 8 a.m. my time, 1 a.m. in UK time? No. Let me just see. There's a time zone converter. There's a really handy time zone converter website that I use. I'll put a link in the chat for you. Where are you located, Tina? Are you in the UK? Right, there's a link. Okay, so we're talking about I might do 2 a.m. Okay, so in Edmonton time, if I make it 2 a.m., for example, okay, 2 a.m. It's telling me that it's not a good time. So if I compare that to London, that's 9 a.m. So it's 7 hours later, your time. Okay, so 8 a.m. my time. Yeah, it's opposite of what you said, Tina. So 1 a.m. my time is 8 a.m. your time. So opposite of that. Yes, 9 a.m. UK is 2 a.m. here. So exactly. Uh, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's a good question. 8 p.m. Eastern. Use the little time zone thing. It's really, really handy. Yes, it would be 1 a.m. Okay, so the evening times are less convenient for UK time, which is why we're talking about doing 1 or 2 that are in like the middle of the night our time. You removed my screen, Rob. There we go. All right, so I am going to sign off there and wish you all, for those of you that are mothers, we're going to miss Mother's Day. So I wish you all an early happy Mother's Day for those of you who are mothers, and send in your forest images. We're going to be working on things that are green next time. And if there's water, we'll try the water enhancer on the waterfalls and the ponds and so on in the forest. And I actually think that image might even be Stephanie's. I'm not sure. Is that your image, Stephanie? I can't remember. I know it was a submitted image by one of our readers viewers that I edited. Thanks, Sue. Thanks for joining, and we will have a wonderful cruise. Take care, everyone.